Welcome everyone to another edition of the Allen Powell Show, another Tuesday night. A lot going on. Man, I'm excited about tonight's show. Holding it down from LA, my brother Cliff Mason. How have you been, brother?
I've been good. I've been doing better than Bubba Wallace. I'll say that.
Wow. I hear you on that, and we definitely about to get into all of that. But I got to introduce the special guest of the evening. I've been trying to get her on for I'm gonna have to look at my messenger, well, maybe like a month, I think.
Yeah, about that long.
But I'm excited to have her on. Let me just lay down some of her accolades. She's a graduate, a sports communication graduate of IU, alumni. Yeah. Hey, do you want to put the tag in the?
Hey, who's yours?
Yeah. So she's a graduate from IU, alumni of William A. Word High School. We definitely went to school together. I've seen her in action. And one of the best women's basketball players I've seen, if not the best, William A. Word High School. Lauren Taylor, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, I'm glad that you made it, and we have a great show. So before we get into it, we just got I just want to give people a few of the topics we're gonna be discussing. So we got WNBA players skipping the season. A college player won't play unless the flag is changed. And man, we Colin Kaepernick news, Mike Gundy, and Trevor Reason opted out of the NBA. So, but first we got to get into this NASCAR stories. So without further ado, let's lock and load, get right into it. It was a noose found in Bubba Wallace's garage. They said it was going to be an investigation. And before the investigation, they had a race and they had this big scene, all the drivers pushing his car to the front line. It was like a kumbaya moment. Everybody was saying how great this is, this and that. And then the investigation came and they said the noose was found, it's been there since October, and there was no hate crime. So, and then the president and what's his name? I forget his name. But the NASCAR analyst said this was the best outcome for NASCAR. But Cliff, you was messaging me before the show, and then before we started just now, you was up in arms. So I'm giving you the phone. Go ahead and go crazy.
There's a bunch of points, but I'll just start with like two main points. One, they found a noose. I don't care if they found it last hour, last week, last year, for the FBI to respond with and say, "Oh, there's no crime here because this was planted back in 2019." What? Oh, so it's okay to threaten a man so long as you're now a few months removed? I mean, that's nonsense. And number two, NASCAR needs to do a better job of policing. If I was NASCAR and the FBI responded with, "Oh, no crime here," I still want to say, finish the investigation that you conducted and let us know who's responsible so that we can take care of them, because ultimately this is reflecting back on NASCAR to me.
Got you. And I want to say this. It was found in 2019, and I guess so. Was it still his garage in 2019? Was it still for him? Like, so it was still for him, but just because it's in October, then it's no hate crime. Lauren, go ahead. What's your thoughts?
It's still definitely a crime. I do want to commend the NASCAR racers on the whole kumbaya moment of walking with him through with his race car on the racetrack. That was a great moment, but it just still seems a little fishy that the noose was found in his locker room or whatever, and it just doesn't sit right with me still. It's just still a little fishy to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just in case people don't know who Bubba Wallace is, he's the only black full-time driver in NASCAR, and he made a push for all the Confederate flags to be removed. And then he already has said that he knows there's going to be some people still upset about it.
Yep.
And when the event happened, they had people outside, parading around with the signs, and they had somebody fly over the event with the Confederate flag. So we can still see right there that it's still some ill feelings towards Bubba Wallace and his whole stance. Is this going to continue to happen? Go ahead, Cliff.
So I'm glad you pointed out Bubba Wallace is the lone black driver. NASCAR needs Bubba Wallace more than Bubba Wallace needs NASCAR. Because if we think back, the NBA is probably the best model for expanding demographics and reaching out to multiple communities. We saw them do this in the 90s with Jordan, and they were able to reach China, and they were able to reach Europe and really expand the game of basketball. If NASCAR wants to get out of the Deep South or just be associated with rednecks, they need to promote their lone black driver. They need to protect him. They need to support him. And they need to actually show some type of willingness to get behind punishing whoever's responsible for the flag. And yeah, I think they're going to have to. You can't shut down flyovers, right? You can't really shut down the flyovers, but they can police what goes on in their stadiums. And they have to do it, because if they drive, no pun intended, if they drive Bubba Wallace out of the sport, they're in trouble, because essentially what they're saying is, no, not only we're not willing to accept anyone who's not a white man into this profession, you're not welcome here, even as a spectator. And that's a dangerous precedent. They've got to protect and support this man.
You got to respect what they did in banning the Confederate flag, though. It was long overdue. They really are going to probably gain a little bit of fans, because I now will probably start watching it, because that they made that stance, and I've seen people now saying that, hey, that was a good move, and they will probably start making an effort to watch more of those races.
And
you definitely have to commend them for that.
Right. And we've seen Alvin Kamara come to an event now. So the black audience is going to start to pay attention more because of Bubba Wallace and his whole stance. But let me ask y'all this. So the investigation happened, and they said it was there from October, I guess, in 2019. So is it that they don't have footage from that time, or do you think the cover up is in, like, okay, this is our outlet to say, hey, there's no hate crime, it was in 2019, or do they don't want to do their due diligence of going back because they have the footage, but because it was so long, that's their out?
Yeah, I think it would probably be irresponsible to kind of conjecture and conspiracies that they're connected to some plot to cover up who's responsible. But it's also difficult to think a 2-day investigation ended and they surmise that this noose was placed in 2019. It's like, to me, if you found that out that early, that means you were told that it was placed in 2019. Someone is aware of who's responsible. Why has that name not been disclosed?
They definitely need to do some more digging, because they ended it too soon, the investigation, and I'm just not satisfied for them just to say that, okay, it happened in 2019. Like you said, it's still a hate crime by having a noose in someone's locker room, Bubba Wallace's locker room, like that.
Yeah. And at that time in October 2019, I think we all can agree that this movement is a little bit different than in the past. And I'm thinking around October 2019, it wasn't really a fuss going up. It wasn't this big shift that we believe is happening in the country right now. So if they did find a noose, it wasn't as big of a deal as it is now.
Now, yeah, definitely.
That's a good point.
Agreed.
Yeah, being in this moment and with the BLM movement, like getting more kind of widespread appeal because people recognize after seeing on video, yeah, right. it makes sense that it mean more now. But it to me, it doesn't excuse it. It happened. Right. Let's do something about it.
Mr. Seasoned Salt from YouTube says that they are not going to tell on each other. What do y'all think about that? Because somebody, I heard someone else make the point that it's okay to stand with Bubba Wallace, but you also have to be against the people that's, doing these type of things or feel some type of way or have some type of undertone in racism. It's one thing to stand with someone, but you also have to challenge the other side. What are y'all thoughts about that?
You definitely have to challenge that because it's not in this climate that we're in right now. It is not acceptable. You can't have a noose. You can't have Confederate flags. It's not welcoming. And NASCAR is trying to have a welcoming audience, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Gain more perspective and more of an audience, of a diverse audience, an inclusive audience. Right. Mm-hmm. Because what they're having right now is just, or from the past, is just monotone. We need more diversity, and I think that's something that they're trying to do, and that's why they took that stance in the Confederate, leaving the Confederate flags outside and not allowing it in their stadiums.
I think this is also probably a good kind of racial prejudice litmus test. If you don't speak out against this right now, or you weren't one of the ones, if you're not walking alongside him, showing your solidarity for the movement, then essentially, what are you telling us? So I think, yeah, like the commenter, they're not going to tell on each other. They're not going to tell on each other, Mr. Seasoning Salt. Like, yeah, I think the people who harbor similar ill towards people of color, or specifically Black people, sure, they aren't going to shed any light on who's responsible. But for the people who think that this is just as horrible as POC, then I think that they are willing to stand up. And let's say we hold them to that. And if you don't speak up and speak out, then maybe you do harbor that. And I think it's okay to have that assumption. Like right now is the time. No, it's not okay for anyone to be silent. I keep seeing these memes. White silence is violence, and I agree. So right now is not the time to be silent. If you think this is horrible, speak out against it.
Do you think someone knows who had that noose there in October 2019?
Without question.
Oh, so someone knows something, definitely.
Wow.
But like Mr. Season said, I don't think they're not gonna come out and say anything. They're gonna do a little bit more investigating for it to come all the way out.
Do you think it's gonna come out?
Hopefully.
I mean, it's early. We're day 3 now. We're day 3.
Yeah, hopefully.
I say this. If it does come out, guess who's going to break the story first?
TMZ.
Facts.
TMZ.
Definitely. TMZ, get on your job, TMZ. You need to find out who left that noose in there.
Yes.
Get on your job.
Yes. That is absolutely correct. Let's see. We got a comment from Joe Eddie. It would damage their brand to admit someone actually did it for a hate crime, though, Famo. So go ahead, Cliff.
That's why I don't think it would be NASCAR to release that information. It's going to be someone who's like a crew member who thinks, oh, what that person did was terrible. It's either a crew member, a low-level staffer. They're going to come and just slide in TMZ's DMs, and they're going to give them the information that they need. It's not going to be NASCAR. It's going to be someone on the low that gives us that information.
Right. So y'all continue to comment on this. We'll say that one more time.
I just said TMZ needs to get on the job, do some investigating for it.
Hey, TMZ, they break all types of stories. We'll probably see a 30 for 30 later on this story too.
Yep.
he might. I mean, the only black driver in what, like, how many years? He deserves a 30 for 30. Because who knows?
Definitely.
Are you shocked? Are you shocked that he's standing up and did some of the stuff that he done, being the only black driver?
Yes. I didn't see it coming. I didn't expect it, because you would assume he would try to either tamp down some of his own culture so that he can fit in. Like, people talk about having to assimilate so they can fit into some white culture and just not be viewed as viewed as like a radical, because they always try to paint us as a radical or paint us as angry. So I assume he would just avoid any of this so that he's a non-controversial, easily kind of accessible individual. So I commend him. I think this is super brave what he's doing.
Mr.
You definitely have to commend him.
Yeah, Mr. Seasoning Saucer, they are not going to tell because they're going to stick to the code of races as with any other sports then and protect your teammates. That comment makes me think of the code of police officers. That comment that he said makes me think of police officers not doing anything when they see injustices going on around them. Is that a fair comparison?
That's where my mind went. I was like, oh, it's almost like he's making a thin blue line analogy, and that's essentially what it is. It's equivalent to officers who are very aware of the misconduct of their colleagues, and they would not shed light on it because they'll be ostracized. The same thing could happen in NASCAR. I mean, if somebody knows something, it's not going to be a driver or NASCAR that releases the information, because they'll be excommunicated from the league.
Right. So we've seen Bubba Wallace. Go ahead, Lauren. You had something else?
I was going to say, I kind of disagree with that, because you've seen Jimmy Johnson, you've seen Kurt Busch and Kyle Busch kind of stand out. You know, some of the stars in the industry saying, you know, they are against all of the racism and the Confederate flag that, you know, the sport has brought. And I just think that they will, like you said, it will be more of a TMZ or an outside investigator that, you know, will find who actually bought the noose to the track.
I would agree with you if you didn't list off a 3-time champion and a person who's taken so many checkered flags. Like, we're talking about people who are untouchable. They can say what they want because they have a fan base that's never going to be diminished, because they've already proven themselves for a decade on the track. We're not going to get any low-level racers come out and make the statement. Yeah, Kurt Busch, Jimmy Johnson, they can say what they want, because who's going to not be a fan of arguably this generation's greatest driver?
It's going to be interesting to see what it's going to be interesting to see what comes up. So we've seen Bubba Wallace stand up, being the only black person in the sport. I was a little shocked too. Of course, I didn't know who he was before all of this happened, but we know who he is now.
Same.
We know who he is now.
But I want to talk about right. Hey, I think he's going to be a face of a lot of things coming forward. You know, if we remember, Nike put Colin Kaepernick when he stood up and they endorsed him. It might be some endorsement deals coming for Bubba Wallace in the future as well. But we seen him step up and step out. But I want to get into the WNBA, and it's some players that's skipping the season. So first we have Washington Mystics, Natasha Cloud and LaToya Sanders skipping the season. Natasha Cloud is skipping to focus on the social issues, and LaToya Sanders is skipping for health reasons.
Mm-hmm.
My question though is, do you think? And Cliff, we spoke about this earlier before the show. You was on this as well.
Yeah.
My question is, but first my comment is, it's very commendable what they're doing, especially Natasha Cloud. But I question if they were making the millions that the men were having, would they still make the same move? Would it be harder? Lauren, I want to ask you, should they what do you think of them doing this especially on the salaries that they're making? Because I think it's very commendable what they're doing based on the salaries that they're making.
It is very commendable. on the salaries that they're making. Miss Cloud, for her to do this for social justice, I mean, that's something that, you don't see too many people do in the sports world. I mean, you see, I'm not gonna compare her to any big figure like Muhammad Ali or Colin Kaepernick or anything like that, or even Maya Moore. But it's very, very commendable what she's doing in the eyes of social justice. Maybe if the salaries were a little better, it might be different. But I mean, she's making decent salary. It's not NBA money, but she definitely is. She's doing a great thing.
Cliff, what's your thoughts?
So it's tough because on the one end, we're thinking the average length of NBA or WNBA career is so short, and they're taking this huge risk, and they're doing it for a cause essentially that we can all assume it's for all of us. Like obviously they're taking up for like these very specific issues, but it's essentially for us. So it's like Laura said, yeah, it's commendable. We have to commend these athletes. And beyond that, if they were paid better, I'm not cynical. I think that they would still make this decision. The health one is a little different situation. I think, preserve we're only on this earth for so long. So whatever you can do to be healthy, I support that. That's, but in terms of you are still healthy and essentially like you're a key player on your team, to make the decision not to return to the game because you want to take a stand on this issue and you're going to forfeit, over $100,000 in the process.
That's not chump change.
Yeah.
That's a tough sell, right? I mean, you essentially after they leave this, WNBA, unlike NBA players, if they invest well, WNBA players have to have another job.
Right.
We've seen them oftentimes get into some that are really skilled. I think that I don't want to mess up their names. The Stanford twins, or they weren't twins, but the Stanford sisters, they've kind of shifted into ESPN role, and they've been great. Right. But that's not everybody. They all have to get second jobs. So for her to take a year off of an already shortened career and to say, I'm going to take a stand on this issue, I don't know if I could make that decision.
Let me ask y'all this, because these ladies were two starters on the champion 2019 Washington Mystics squad. If two starters from that team is sitting out as a league, is it even worth having a season for only 22 games? Is it worth taking that chance? If you got two starters sitting out, I think that's a big issue. Is it worth having a season, Lauren?
It's still worth having a season. That's just two starters on that team. There's plenty other teams in the WNBA that they're going to compete and do a good job. So you definitely still want to have a season. You want to promote that brand. You want to promote the WNBA. It's a good brand, and that shouldn't stop it. Like I definitely commend those two women for doing what they're doing. But it shouldn't stop the progress of the WNBA.
I like the question because to me, if we compare apples to apples, it's equivalent of Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam sitting out. Does that change the integrity of the ending of the NBA season, knowing that the defending champion has these two starters out?
That's a great question, because I think if it was the NBA, it would be a bigger deal. But because the WNBA haven't reached the status of the NBA, it probably won't get the amount of publicity as the NBA, and then in that way they can still get past it. What's your thoughts, Lauren?
Same. I agree with Cliff. Two starters on a defending championship team, that's going to hurt that team going, into that next season. But again, there's so many other teams going to make the playoffs. It's not going to hurt the brand. So they can just keep the party going. You know what I mean?
Right. It is some other players still considering not playing. Deladon, who's I believe a very big star, hasn't confirmed whether she will be playing or not. So if you start losing players like that,
yeah, now she's a superstar.
Yes.
Not to say these other women aren't, but she is the WNBA right now.
Yeah.
So if you lose somebody like her, that will definitely hurt the WNBA brand. Definitely.
And if you remember, previous story, she was talking about going overseas to play because I think she wanted more money.
Yep.
Her and Taurasi. That's why Taurasi hasn't been there. So, if they lose her, then they will be in a little bit of trouble.
Real quick, Lauren, in your opinion, what can the WNBA do to raise their level of publicity, to get a bigger following? What can they do?
I don't know. The level of play is definitely there. They need more stars. It's not a star-studded league. Used to have Lisa Leslie, like I said, Diana Taurasi. Diana Taurasi is now playing overseas. It just needs to be more stars in the league. You used to have Tamika Catchings here in Indianapolis, and you just don't have those name brand players anymore. You need to build up more of a, just more of a star event.
Star-studded needs some more star-studded people, women. Cliff, I see you.
Yes, definitely.
I see him like moving and like itching. What you got to say, brother?
I don't think I agree with that.
Okay,
we lose the Cheryl Swoops, we gain a Candace Parker, right? Like I think there's stars. We don't know their name because the market is different. Like, unfortunately, they don't really have the shoe deals. I mean, you can be a just slightly above average player in the NBA, and you got a multi-million-dollar shoe deal. Why doesn't Deladon have her own shoe? I don't understand. Like, why didn't Maya Moore have her own shoe? I mean, it was just crazy talk, right? Shaq had his own shoe line, right? Like, why didn't Lisa Leslie have her own shoe line? She was the equivalent of Shaq in the other league. And so I think that there's stars in both.
Is the league doing enough to promote these players? Because when you said that, it makes me think, like, why the women don't have a dribbling commercial that like the players had, where they was dribbling, throw the ball, do different things like that. Why are not they are not getting promoted like they I think they should.
So one thing
because like I said, there's no stars. There's no stars. There you got Deladon, like you said, you have Candace Parker, you have a little bit here, you have a little bit there. With the NBA, it's more widespread. You need more widespread here in the WNBA.
So you don't think the quote unquote stars of the WNBA are big enough? You saying they're not big enough? Is it because of the play or because of promotion though? Because I look at the girl from Notre Dame. I don't want to mess her name up, but she was a beast. And like you say, Deladon is great. I mean, go ahead, Cliff. What did you think?
Yeah, and don't forget about Brittany Griner. I mean, forget all the off the court stuff. Brittany Griner was a beast too.
Right.
What I was going to say to answer the question earlier, I don't know why the WNBA has to play in a season that's out of basketball season. They should be playing simultaneously with the NBA. And since most of them are occupied by NBA teams, the NBA teams, the leagues are essentially connected. Why don't they have not corresponding nights, but alternating nights? So if you buy if you buy a Lakers ticket, you also have to buy a Sparks ticket. And then you're going Tuesday night to see the Lakers. Wednesday night, you see the Sparks. They should be playing at the same time. They can fill the arena because now you're buying these ticket packages as opposed to I'm just buying tickets to see the NBA. You're supporting both teams. Most people have, if you got sons, you probably got daughters, right? Isn't the population 50 and 50? There might be 51% women. Take your daughters to see WNBA and WNBA games. Take your sons to see WNBA games.
Hey man, somebody put this brother on the payroll, man, and
Cliff, you got it, man. You solved the problem right there. You solved the problem. That's a great idea. I've never thought of anything like that. That is a great idea.
When he first said it, I was like, no, you can't do that because the audience they'll be losing the audience to the to the NBA. But you say alternating nights, that might work.
Yep,
that might work. But and then another thing Go ahead, Lauren.
No, I'm just saying you just got something for everybody if you have that idea. That's a great idea.
It is. You might have to present this, Cliff, man, and just say that you thought about it on the Alan Powell show, and it just came to you.
That works.
But another thing I was thinking about, if I'm the ladies of that league and I see I'm not getting promoted like I should, I'm about to call up my local videographer and I'm about to make my own promo videos and putting them out there on YouTube, Instagram, and build my own following to build up the league. Because if it like this, Mr. Seasoning Salt says, it seems to boil down to the dollar. For example, if they're claiming, hey, we don't have the money to promote you all, it's too much technology out here not to promote yourself in a sense.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, I'm putting out some YouTube videos. I'm making some short videos, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything. The women should be promoting themselves because like you say, we don't see no shoe deals. We don't see a lot of commercials. And Lauren says it's just they not star-studded enough. My favorite player back in the day was Dawn Staley because she was flashy to me.
Ooh, yeah.
Handles for days.
For
days. He was my favorite.
One of the greatest players ever.
I want to touch on. Go ahead, Cliff.
You're good.
Go ahead, Cliff.
I was gonna say I like your idea of the self-promotion because I forget her name, but I follow. It could be Chrissy Jackson or somebody. I follow the female Globetrotter, and she's a great follow. She put that stuff out there, but like if you get stuff like that, it can start like people go viral. I think if they start like doing more activity with basketball on their social media platforms, it can grow the audience also.
Real quick before we move on, I want to touch on Maya Moore because her story was brought up on how she left the NBA to follow ministry plans and to fight social injustice as well.
Yep.
And Cliff, once again, at the beginning of the show, you were just saying how commendable it was, but I don't know if I could have done it at the height of my career. I think she was 29 when she left. 4 WNBA championships?
Yeah, I mean, who else do we know besides Muhammad Ali? I mean, who else is considered to be, if not the best, one of the best of their generation, competing and in their prime, left because of socio-political issues? I mean, this is in her reason is because she said this man is, I think, convicted and wrongfully convicted. I mean, it's not just commendable, it's heroic, it's courageous. I mean, it's everything. Maya Moore should be a household name. I'm going to repeat that. Maya Moore should be a household name. She's not just a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, a 2-time NCAA champion, a 4-time WNBA champion. She's a bona fide social justice warrior, and she deserves, as Birdman says, for us to put some respect on her name.
All three of y'all.
All three of y'all.
Right, she's definitely a basketball future Hall of Famer.
And first ballot.
What she's doing is nothing less than saint-like. She should be up there with Mother Teresa with the things that she's doing. Leaving the WNBA at the height of her career to go help for social justice for this man that is, incarcerated. Sounds like wrongfully incarcerated. But what she's doing is nothing less than saint-like. She's just, you can't give that too many accolades for this for her doing that. But she's just doing a great job.
Yeah,
man,
she can get an image award.
Yeah, definitely. And then I wonder, like, man, how many championships could she have won? She won 4 at age 29. Man, she could have been up there with the Jordans and
it's like the question you asked Jordan: if he didn't leave to play baseball, how many would he have 8?
Right.
Like, would he have 8?
Right.
Would he have 6? Like, we'll never know.
As we talk about Maya Moore and the few WNBA players that skip in the season, does this make the NBA men have to step up? Like, we are seeing, a few players here and there. We might be able to touch on that a little bit later. That's going to step away for other reasons. But Kyrie and Steven Jackson says they shouldn't be playing right now. These players are actually stepping out and doing it. Does this make the men look bad?
I don't think it makes them look bad. Sorry, go ahead, Cliff. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead, Lauren.
Okay, I don't think it makes them look bad, but they definitely need to step up to the plate because the women are out there on the front line, going, skipping their season for social justice. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to skip your season, but you do have to, you have a platform. You need to be able to express how you feel about these social injustices with your platform. So I don't think it makes them look bad, but they definitely need to do something.
Kyrie is probably the worst messenger for this. That's why I laughed, because I'm completely with the sentiment, but it's like, could anyone, literally anyone other than him have made the statement? But regardless, I'm fortunate to work at a school with some strong, like intellectual, like powerhouse Black women, and Black women seem to always lead us into the direction we need to go. If you look at elections, they vote at the highest numbers, and they typically, if you look at who they're voting for, typically they're always on the right side of history. So I say, as Black women, there should be T-shirts and just follow Black women, please. So yeah, does it make them look bad? No, because Black women are always doing better than the rest of us. Is it a model and an example that we need to follow? You better believe it. Like, all of us on here got Black mamas, so we follow.
But I would say this, man. It's time for the Black man to stand up. I commend the women for doing the job this long, but I think to see a real radical change, it's time for the Black man to stand up, and I think that's why a lot of things haven't really changed, because the Black man haven't stood up. And I commend the black woman for doing as much as they have, but it's time for the Black man to stand up. It's just time. So it's going to be interesting.
It's definitely time.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I want to get to this next story, man, because I think that if more high profile college athletes start doing this, it's going to ruffle some feathers. So the Mississippi State running back Kylan Hill says he will not play for Mississippi State unless the flag is changed. Now, so to give a little Black background, Mississippi is the only state that still features the Confederate cross in their state. All the other states are banning it in different events, but Mississippi State is still holding on to their flag, so to speak. But he's saying, and he's one of the best players in the SEC, which is a big time conference. He's saying if they do not change the flag, he's not playing. Lauren, what are your thoughts?
Highly commendable. If more players thought like him and followed him, you would see a change. The SEC is one of, like you said, the biggest league in college football. So if you have more players not playing in Mississippi, they'll make some change. They'll make some changes because of that. Definitely. And then I heard the SEC as a community say that they are not going to host any events there because of that flag. So we need to start making some changes, because they need to make some changes because of that flag.
Before I get to you, I want to answer this question real quick, because Justin Camper says, why do you say the Black men haven't stood up? The reason why I say that is because I'm talking about the big time players, to me, haven't took a hard stance. Now, I would say it's easier said than done. I'm not in that position, so it's easy for me to stand back and say, hey, LeBron, it's one thing to post on social media and wear shirts, but to take a really hard stand like these women are doing, I think that's what we need. So that's what I mean. But go ahead, Cliff.
Yeah, I was gonna say we see leagues and institutions evolve when they realize that the almighty dollar is going to be affected. So if we think back, this is about 5 years ago, North Carolina passed that anti-trans law. And what the NBA say, okay, we'll pull All-Star Weekend. And that state legislature said, nah, governor, you better sign this bill right now and reverse this nonsense.
Yeah.
So,
right.
If, like Lauren said, if these players, if there was a larger collective of players, because one player may not make the difference, but you get a QB, you get a starting safety, you get some key players that are on the field for half the game or more. The school's going to go to the AD, who's going to then go to the president of the institution, who's going to then go to the board of governors, the board of trustee, whoever's responsible for making the rules for the institution. It's like, we got to get this flag out of here because we're not going to be competitive in the most competitive conference in college football. And that's probably another argument for another show. But you can't have a player in this institution say, I'm not willing to compete because of a flag that we should have already had gone. To me, there's not even much of an argument. It's like people have said, oh, this is our history. Whose history? It's a like we talked about it a few weeks ago. It's a losing traitorous history. How about we get rid of that history and fly the stars and stripes? Because that's a history of victory. Yeah. That's a history of freedom. That's the history that we should be promoting, not this racist history from the Klan. Like there's more roots in the Klan with the Confederate flag than there is in freedom.
I'm gonna get to a couple of these comments because they're coming in fast and furious, and I got more of the story to get to. I want to start with this one though. Mr. Season Sauce said, I think one big issue is that women stick together more often than men do. Hit that real quick. Do you agree with that, Cliff?
No. I mean, they stick together. I mean, no. No.
No, just no. That's it.
That's a good point. You know what? No, I don't. So I'm thinking back to the Drew Brees conversation, and there was a huge backlash, and his teammates, there wasn't a lot of support for what Drew Brees was saying. But we have to, I mean, I think we're all reasonably minded people. We know Drew Brees isn't the only one who harbored those views on that team, but we didn't see anyone come out publicly and say, oh, I agree with Drew Brees. So if we try to take them out,
besides Donald Trump,
well, that's a whole nother. Yeah, but if we break it down, like issues like that, like per team, we've not seen a lot of support for some of these like nonsense statements. So I guess in that sense, but in terms of like social justice, we see men's teams come together. They wore the I Can't Breathe shirts a few years ago after Eric Garner was choked out. We've seen some collective with men, but I don't know if I'm willing to accept the kind of blanket statement, women's athletes stick together more than the men. I don't know if I'm ready to go there.
Lauren, what you think about that statement as a woman?
I don't know. Sisterhood, you get the right group of sisters together, black, white, Latino. It's a powerful thing, man. It's a very powerful thing. So if you have a sisterhood, a bond of women that are against something, and they even like you said, Cliff, with voting in Alabama, you saw women at the forefront make a change. Yep. The WNBA a couple of years ago, I think there was something with Philando Castile, as a matter of fact, in Minnesota. The Minnesota Lynx came together. They all had the same United T-shirts together, and the cops didn't like it, but it was a very powerful thing. So with that being said, it's a very powerful thing to have a strong sisterhood.
Got you. Justin Camper says he doesn't have much leverage. Why you choose to go to a school that supports racism? That's a good question. I see you shake your head, Cliff. What do you think about that comment?
So I'm no fan of Mississippi, but I wouldn't argue that the school supports racism. I think they've been slow to change. Ultimately, like this affiliation with this horrific institution, that of the Confederacy. So I think it's a little bit out there to say that why go to a school that supports racism? It could be close to his family, maybe the offensive or defensive, maybe the system that the school runs, what's fit him. He had a good connection with his future teammates. There's all kinds of reasons that we choose to go to schools. I'm not sure if that's a fair question. I think the fair question is, what are we now going to do if we want to keep this brother in our school? What are we going to do to support him? I think that's the question we have to ask.
But I think that is a fair question. did he know the background of the school, or he just found out just now because of all of this stuff going on? Lauren, what are your thoughts about that question? Uh-oh, did we lose her? Can she hear me?
Oh, hello. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last little statement. I'm sorry.
I said, did he know the background of the school, or did he just find out, with all this stuff going on now? What are your thoughts about Justin Camper's question, why you choose to go to a school that supports racism?
I don't know. That's a hard question. You don't know, what was brought to him. What did he see when he was recruited to the school? Right. You just don't know what he was thinking, or what was brought to his attention. Maybe they hid a lot of the stuff that he was more on the racist side, and I've seen that happen before too. But you just don't know exactly what his mindset was, knowing that this flag represents the state, and that the state represents school. You just don't know what he was thinking and going to that school. It's hard to say.
Real quick, I just want to respond. I guess I'm going to respond now, like as a former athlete. Like I went to school not for football, but I went to school and I was fortunate to have football be the reason that I didn't leave with a bunch of debt after undergrad. So when you go on a recruiting trip, they're showing you, to Lauren's point, everything you want to see and need to see to pick them over the other schools that are courting you. So of course you did. So like when I went, they took me to a nightclub. I had never been to a nightclub as a teenager. I got to meet all of my future Black teammates. I got to meet the coolest coaches. I mean, so what you're doing during a recruiting trip, there might be, to Justin's question, there might be things about that community that you don't learn until you're actually in the community, living it 24/7. And it's like, oh, this is eye-opening. Oh, this is a little scary. I wish I knew this before, but there's no way you would have ever known this. There's no amount of research that can replace lived experiences.
Right. Real quick, who wins in this tug of war? The running back or the university?
I hope that he does win, for the sake of all of us in the state of Mississippi. I just hope that they, eventually change the flag. I think, like you said, if more players come out and say they don't want to play, if the SEC is saying they don't want to play in that state, money talks. So if you're gonna have people, if you're gonna lose money, they'll change some things, hopefully.
So my answer, like you like to ask us percentages. I'm very low. I would say maybe 10%, because if we just look back less than 14 days ago, we might have an example of what's going to happen. Don't forget about Mike Gundy. So we saw Gundy and the apparatus of Oklahoma State put enough pressure on that young man to, within less than 24 hours, post this kumbaya video with his coach where they hugged and everything's good now. No, it's not. But he felt sufficient pressure where he was no longer able to stick to his word and say, you know what, I can't play for this man wearing this shirt that's affiliated with this hateful organization. I think this young brother is going to have similar pressure from not just the state, but the institution and the athletics program. They're going to say, you got to come out, you got to post that you retract this statement because this isn't going to work, and for all these reasons. And we can't protect you if you don't do that. I think there's going to be too much pressure on this young man not to retract. So I have no hope.
So you say no.
No.
So I'm gonna read. The Mississippi governor said the proposal to create a second flag does not meet the threshold and would divide our state more. What are your thoughts about that? So he's concerned that if he do the right thing, that that the people are going to be divided. We only got a few minutes left. Real quick, Lauren, 1 minute. What do you thought about the governor's statement?
It's disappointing. You want him to do the right thing, for the state, and for the people of the state. It's just very disappointing. Hopefully he changes his mind. Like I said, hopefully more players will step up and say, they don't want to play under these circumstances, and hopefully he'll just change his mind. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
Before I answer the question, I'm going to address Justin's question. So it says, my question to Cliff, if you were playing college football at Mississippi, would you stop playing because of the flag? I'm probably the worst person to ask because I transferred out of the University of Idaho because I was being mistreated by the head coach and my running backs coach. I left to the East Coast. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. So yeah, so if there's a flag that I think is definitely not representative of anything that I hold near and dear, I'm gone. Yeah. So that's my view on it.
Okay, what about the governor? Real quick.
Okay, in defense of the governor, he has a responsibility to maintain some peace and order, but he also has a responsibility to, as Lauren said, do the right thing. I wish sometimes we should just have 1,000 times printed out, neckties printed out for public officials. I'm here to do the right thing. Because if they remember that, if that was kind of their mantra, they woke up, they did their yoga, whatever they do in the morning, and repeated this phrase, I'm here to do the right thing. If it's not in your head that the right thing is to remove myself from any connection or affiliation to this traitorous institution, the Confederacy, then you're not on the right side of history. So to me, it's inexcusable to say it will divide the state more. The state's already divided. The country's divided because of what's in the White House. You don't get to solve that. You solve what's in Mississippi. It's within your power to change the flag. So put pressure on your state legislature and tell them, if you send me a bill, I'll sign it today, because he has that power.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we got a few minutes left, man. I feel like I need to go a few extra minutes, but for podcast reasons, we got to stick to this time. So with that being said, I want to get to my segment called Come to Church With Me. The scripture of the day is Daniel 1:12. And it was, I believe that this scripture is very symbolic to what's going on in the world today. And so I had a Bible study with Cliff. Justin, he had his Bible study, and his scripture he chose was Daniel chapter 1. And the reason I believe if I was to give this title, give this scripture a title, it would be called Change the Culture. And the scripture I chose is 1:12 through 16. I'm comparing it to, say, if you was picking your basketball team. Mm-hmm. And if you chose your basketball team, you told them, hey, I'm picking my team. Of course, you're looking for the best players, but you said, hey, players, if you be on my team, you got to do a whole bunch of drugs and alcohol too. And so as I'm telling you that, I want you to pay attention to Daniel chapter 1:12 through 16. It says, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. To give a little backstory, a king was looking for some new thoroughbred, so to speak, and he was telling them they have to eat this food and drink this wine. Daniel says, no, hey, I just want vegetables and water. And then after 10 days, test me, and then test the people you gave the food that you gave to, and see what happens. And so it says, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthy and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and wine, and they were to drink, and gave them vegetables instead. I believe Daniel changed the culture. They was used to eating the royal food, but he said, hey, he asked, hey, just give me vegetables and water and see what happens. And after the king saw that he was 10 times better than the other people, he stopped giving them a royal food and gave them what Daniel was eating. So I believe that he changed the culture at that time, and I believe that this is our time to change culture. So if you look up the story, it's a lot going on in that scripture. I just try to give something real quick. I believe this is our time to change the culture. You don't have to just go with the status quo.
Yeah,
change it. It's the time. So we do got a couple more minutes. I want to get to some rapid fire yes or no questions with y'all real quick.
All right.
Here we go.
Okay.
Colin Kaepernick, the coach of the Chargers, said he's on their radar for a workout. Yes or no, Colin Kaepernick will sign with a team this year, Lauren?
As much as I want to say yes, I don't think it will happen.
Okay, she got a no. Cliff, yes or no, he will sign with a team this season?
No.
Okay. Mike Gundy got accused of saying a racial slur in 1989. And the player that said he said a racial slur says he wants an apology. Will he get that apology? Yes or no? Cliff?
Yes.
He will get the apology. Lauren, will he get the apology from 1989?
I think so.
Yes. Yeah, I hear you. Can you hear us?
Yep. I think he will get the apology. I think so. Yes.
Wow. And my question, like, what's the statute of limitations for an apology? For a slur?
Right.
I'm all for making change, but geez, 89. Like, man, what if something was wrong with me in 89? Like, what if I was a racist in 89? What if I'm not a racist? I don't know. MLB seems like they're going to have a season, 60 games. Excited for it, Cliff?
Yes.
I'm definitely excited for it. Yeah.
I'm excited for it. I'm just nervous. Like any team, a major team, I'll be quick. Any team that has a star, if they come down with COVID, they're out for 2 to 3 weeks. That's a third of the season. So it's tough to. I'm excited, but it's like, what if Mike Trout comes down with it? I don't want to watch anymore.
Great point. Lauren, excited? 60 games, is that enough? Excited about the season?
I am excited, definitely. I miss sports right now, so anything right now is going to be great for me, especially baseball. I'm ready for Cubs to do something. Yeah, I'm definitely excited for it.
I see the picture in your background.
Even if it is 60 games.
Right on. Last question. Trevor Ariza and Trevor Ariza is opting out for custody battle reasons, and Bertans from the Wizards is sitting out because he's in a contract year. Will this be an asterisk next to the champion of the season, in particular LeBron James?
Of course. So just like I think there's an asterisk with the Spurs winning in '98 with that shortened season. I mean, as much as I love Avery Johnson, Sean Elliott, and the Admiral, I mean, we can't forget that. Yeah, they played in a shortened season. Of course, there's an asterisk. And this season now, he doesn't have to play against a third of the league because the league wants to shorten it to this X amount of teams. It's crazy talk, and there's no fans. It's not just an asterisk. There's an asterisk and a pound sign and a squiggly line. There's all kind of symbols. Every symbol you can
parentheses.
Yeah. And Jokic just got the COVID today. They announced he got the COVID.
And he's not playing anybody, man. Come on. Nobody's gonna want to play against Rudy Gobert.
Right.
He was like the first to come down with it. Who's gonna want to guard Gobert? They're gonna be guarding him like this.
Facts.
Right,
LeBron, he ain't got to play nobody. All right, so look, I appreciate y'all tuning in. I appreciate Cliff, Lauren. Thank y'all for holding it down with us. We're about to get ready to get up out of here. We will see y'all next week. Y'all make sure y'all tune in next week. We're out.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.
Yes.